Hi guys, welcome to the channel of love. Okay, it's our study group time and we are reading How to Raise Your Own Salary, and I most definitely want to try and read a chapter a day. So we are in this location, okay? It's the only place I can really escape to so that I can do some reading. We are on chapter 3, Develop an Attractive Personality. It has these little kind of quotes here. It says here, if you wish a job done promptly and well, get a busy man to do it. The idle man knows too many too many substitutes and shortcuts. Okay, chapter 3, Develop an Attractive Personality. Hill. Mr. Carnegie, we come now to the third of the 17 principles of individual achievement, which you have named attractive personality. I understand that you have separated the factors behind personality into distinct traits, all but one of which may be developed by any normal person. Now, sir, will you describe these characteristics of personality with special emphasis on those which you consider of greatest importance to an individual in selling his way through life successfully? Carnegie. I will not only describe the traits of an attractive personality, but before I have finished, I will also give you a simple formula with which all but one of these traits may be developed and maintained. The mere naming of these personality traits will be of little value to anyone unless he appropriates and uses them. We will begin the outline of the factors with a description of the most important of these, which is positive mental attitude. One may get a fair idea of the important part mental attitude plays in the affairs of an individual's life by considering the fact that it influences the tone of voice, the expression of the face, the posture of the body, and modifies every word that is spoken, as well as determining the nature of every emotion one feels. It does more than these, it modifies every thought one releases, thereby extending its influence to all within its range through the principle of telepathy. For the sake of contrast, let us list some of the disagreeable things that a bad mental attitude causes. It dampens a man's enthusiasm, curtails his initiative, overthrows his self-control, subdues his imagination, undermines his desire to be cooperative, makes him sullen and intolerant, and as if these were not enough damage to ensure a man's failure, it puts on the finishing touch by throwing his reasoning power out of gear. These are but a few of the ways in which a negative mental attitude may damage the individual himself, quite apart from the damage he does to others through his negative influences. Hill. How does a negative mental attitude affect a salesman starting out in the morning, Mr. Carnegie? Carnegie. He would be better off far and away if he remained at home. He not only will not make the sales he would make if his mental attitude were pleasant, but he will make enemies and lose customers as well. Hill. Would a negative mental attitude affect a professional man, such as, for instance, a lawyer or a doctor, Mr. Carnegie? Carnegie. The lawyer who goes into court with a bad mental attitude will find the court and the jury opposing him, although he may have a perfectly just case. And the doctor who comes into the presence of his patients with a negative mental attitude will do them more harm than good, although he may be skilled in the knowledge of his profession. A man may have all the culture modern civilization can provide, and he may have a string of degrees after his name a yard long, and he may be the most skilled man in his field, but he will be a failure, as surely as 2 and 2 make 4, if he carries a bad mental attitude around with him. The one thing people simply will not tolerate is a negative mental attitude. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, you have given us some examples of the results of a negative mental attitude. Now, will you name an outstanding example of a man with a positive mental attitude and how it's affected his life? Carnegie, take Charlie Schwab, for example, whom I have paid as high as $1 million in extra bonus in a single year. Analyse his personality in minute detail, and you will come close to discovering why many of my associates have accumulated fortunes of their own. Charlie came to me as an ordinary labourer. He had but little schooling and very few special talents for anything, but he had one important asset that gives you the clue to his success. He had a perfect mental attitude towards himself and all others with whom he came into contact. Where and how did he come by that attitude? Well, he probably was born with a favourable background for his cultivation of such an attitude, but he acquired the habit of expressing it because he was associated with a group of men who made it a part of their daily duty to develop and maintain a positive mental attitude. Before we pass on to the next factor of attractive personality, let me say that this subject of mental attitude will show up for consideration in connection with every one of the other qualities of personality we are to analyse. It is definitely related to all of them, a fact that is very significant. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, since I am to present the philosophy of achievement to many realistic thinkers, I am keenly interested in the why and how of every principle you mention. Will you therefore give me an idea of how one may go about the development of such an attitude? Carnegie, the simplest way to answer your question is to say that a positive mental attitude can be developed by understanding and applying all of the factors of attractive personality. You will see, therefore, when I finish my analysis of these qualities of personality, that I will have given the complete answer to your question. Hill, very well, Mr. Carnegie. I shall listen carefully to what you say, so as to gather clues which may be helpful in the development of these desirable traits. What is the second factor of personality, sir? Carnegie, flexibility. By this term I have reference to the ability to adapt oneself to quickly changing circumstances and emergencies without losing one's sense of balance. A man with a flexible disposition must be something like a chameleon, the little member of the reptile family that quickly changes its colour to harmonise with its environment. Without this ability, an attractive personality is hardly possible, as the ever-changing conditions of life and of human relationships require individual adaptability. Some men are uncharitable enough to blame their misfortunes on others, but the truth is that every man is where he is and what he is because of his own mental attitude as it is expressed through his personality. Hill, why, Mr. Carnegie, that is a tremendous statement. It rules out almost completely the elements of luck and pull which most people bemoan the lack of when evaluating their status in life. Carnegie, yes indeed. When you present the philosophy of achievement, get the idea over in terms that will cause people to take honest inventory of themselves so they may find and correct their faults of personality. I have often thought that it would be a blessing of the first magnitude if all public schools made the study of attractive personality a must requirement of their curricula. Young people should be taught very early in life that no amount of schooling will ensure their success unless they learn to negotiate with others pleasantly and observe how definitely the quality of flexibility is related to one's mental attitude. Hill. And that, Mr. Carnegie, brings us down to number 3 of the important factors of a pleasing personality, which is Carnegie, sincerity of purpose. This is one trait of character for which there has never been found a satisfactory substitute. I say it is a trait of character because it is something that reaches deeper into a human being than any mere quality of personality. Sincerity of purpose, or the lack of it, writes itself so indelibly into the words and deeds of men that even the novice at character analysis can recognise its presence or its absence. The insincere person announces his weakness in every word he speaks, in the expression of his face, in the trend of his conversation, in his choice of intimate associates, in the sort of service he renders in connection with his occupation, and in other ways that are less noticeable, and this despite the fact that he may be a skilled actor with great ability to camouflage his real nature. It's noisy out there tonight. The proverbial type of yes man is an object of derision the world over, mainly because everyone recognises his insincerity. I shall never forget the first definite opposition I experienced from Charlie Swab. He had been with me only a short time when I called him in and gave him a definite order to make certain changes in his work which I believed should be made. He listened until I finished. Then he looked me squarely in the eyes, with a broad, good-natured smile on his face, and said, "All right, Chief, you are the boss, but I'm going to tell you that your request is going to cost you money because you haven't investigated this matter as closely as I have." There was something about the manner in which he spoke which left me no room to construe his remarks as insubordination, but I held up the order and investigated, only to find that he was right and I was wrong. From that day on, I began to watch Charlie very closely, only to discover in him qualities of both personality and character which made him of priceless value to me. You may say, therefore, that Charlie got his real start with me by his sincerity of purpose, for that is no exaggeration of the facts. Verily, it pays to include sincerity of purpose as one of the factors of personality. Hill. With that sound truth still ringing in our ears, the rings of sincerity, if you please, Mr. Carnegie, we pass on to the fourth factor, comprising a pleasing personality. Will you name it, sir? Carnegie. It is promptness of decision. Observe men wherever you will, and you will notice that those who dilly-dally around, trying to make up their minds, are neither popular nor successful. This is a fast-moving world in which we live, and those who do not move quickly cannot keep up with the parade. Successful men reach decisions definitely and quickly, and they become annoyed and inconvenienced by others who do not act promptly. I call your attention to the fact that promptness of decision is a habit, and therefore it is definitely related to and a part of one's mental attitude. Try as you may, but you cannot separate any of these traits of the attractive personality from their relationship to mental attitude. I call your attention also to the close relationship between promptness of decision and definiteness of purpose. Thus you will observe that these traits of personality have a very direct connection with the entire 17 principles of the philosophy of achievement. We live in a country where individual achievement is possible on a grand scale because of the abundance of opportunity on every hand. But opportunity waits for no man. The man with the vision to recognise opportunity and the promptness of decision to embrace it will get ahead, but no others will. This is the way of the world. It always makes a place for the man who knows exactly what he wants and is determined to get it. Hill. Mr. Carnegie, someone has said that courtesy is the cheapest, yet the most profitable thing in the world. Where do you place this trait of personality, sir? Carnegie. Courtesy is the very next factor to be discussed. It is an essential part of an attractive personality. As to its cheapness, I would go a step further and say it is absolutely free. All it costs is the time required to express it in one's daily contact with others. Perhaps its very cheapness accounts for its scarcity, as it is a quality of personality so rare that when one comes upon it, one is quick to take note of the person expressing it. Hill. Well, Mr. Carnegie, just what is your definition of courtesy? Carnegie. My idea of courtesy is this. It is the habit of respecting other people's feelings under all circumstances, the habit of going out of one's way to help any less fortunate person whenever and wherever possible, and last but by no means least, the habit of controlling selfishness in all its forms. Again, take notice of the definite relationship between courtesy and one's mental attitude. Courtesy is a medium with which one may project his influence to sources of opportunity he could not reach without it. Hill. And after courtesy, Mr. Carnegie, what comes next on the list of the essential elements of a pleasing personality? Carnegie. Next, I shall mention a pair of twin brothers. The first one is tone of voice. The spoken word is, by great odds, the medium through which one expresses his personality most often. Therefore, the tone of one's voice should be so thoroughly under control that it can be coloured and modified so as to make it carry a meaning quite in addition to the mere words expressed. For it does carry a separate meaning, whether one is conscious of this fact or not. The idea, therefore, is it to cultivate the voice that it can be used to convey the particular meaning desired. The man who has developed a 100% attractive personality knows how to convey, through the tone of his voice, every emotion he feels. He can express anger, fear, curiosity, contempt, doubt, affection, courage, sincerity, derision, anxiety, and a wide range of other feelings. Moreover, he makes it a habit to control his voice every time he speaks, for it is only through habit that one reaches perfection in the dramatisation of speech. The price of perfection here, as is true in so many other things, is eternal practice. Every person who develops an attractive personality must study his own voice and place it under control so he can make it convey any feelings he desires. If no teacher of voice is at hand, one can become his own teacher by practicing before a mirror until he gains perfection. Hill. Did you say, Mr. Carnegie, that tone of voice was only one of a pair of twin brothers? What is the nature of the other brother, sir? Carnegie. Oh, the other brother is the habit of smiling. Now, don't make the mistake of feeling that the simple habit of smiling is not an important part of one's personality. And don't forget that it is a habit that is directly associated with mental attitude. If you aren't sure about this, just try smiling when you are angry. I suggest that one should stand before a mirror and practice when practicing voice control, because there are certain expressions of speech which cannot be dramatised properly unless they are accompanied by a smile. Hill, is it possible, Mr. Carnegie, that these twin brothers have some other close relatives? What is the next trait of the desirable personality, sir? Carnegie, it is expression of the face. You may have heard it said that character analysis can tell by a glance at the expression on one's face much about the nature of one's character. Well, it is true, but character analysis are not alone in this ability to judge people by their facial expression. We all do it constantly, whether we do so consciously or not. You can tell a great deal of what is going on in one's mind by the expression on his face. Master salesmen can tell by careful observation of a prospective buyer's facial expression much about what his real thoughts are. If they cannot do this, they are not master salesmen. Moreover, the clever salesman learns to judge what is going on in the other fellow's mind by the tone of his voice. Thus the smile, the tone of voice, the expression of the face constitute an open window through which all who will may see and feel what takes place in the minds of people. This naturally suggests to the smart person to use the use of caution in connection with this open window. The smart person will know when to keep the window closed. He will also know when to open it. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, I haven't been keeping too accurate account of the different traits of an attractive personality which you have mentioned. Because of my intense interest in your remarks, which trait is next, sir? Carnegie, we are up to number 9, which is tactfulness. There is always a right time and a wrong time for everything. Tactfulness consists of the habit of doing and saying the right thing at the right time, and I'm going to enumerate for you a list of the more common ways in which people show their lack of tactfulness. I suggest that this list may be of immeasurable benefit as a checkup on one's personality. Here is the list. Number 1, carelessness in the tone of voice, often speaking in gruff, antagonistic tones that offend. Number 2, speaking out of turn when silence would be more appropriate. 3, interrupting others who are speaking. 4, overworking the personal pronoun. 5, asking impertinent questions, generally to impress others with the questioner's own importance. 6, injecting intimately personal subjects into the conversation where such action is embarrassing to others. 7, going where one has not been invited. 8, boastfulness. 9, flaunting the rules of society in matters of personal adornment. 10, making personal calls at inconvenient hours. 11, holding people on the telephone with needless conversation. 12, writing letters to people whom one has no reasonable excuse for addressing. 13, volunteering opinions when not requested, especially on subjects with which they are not familiar. 14, openly questioning the soundness of the opinions of others. 15, declining requests from others in an arrogant manner. 16, speaking disparagingly of people in front of their friends. 17, rebuking people who disagree with one on any subject. 18, speaking of people's physical afflictions in their presence. 19, correcting subordinates and associates in the presence of others. 20, complaining when requests for favours are refused. 21, presuming upon friendship in asking favours. 22. Using profound or offensive language. 23. Expressing dislikes too freely. 24. Speaking of ills and misfortunes. 25. Criticising our form of government or some other person's religion. And 26. Over familiarity on all occasions with people. Hill. The person who checks his personality against that list and finds himself not to be a violator in any of those ways is indeed fortunate, and he is a rare individual. I can see that tactfulness is another trait of personality which is related to mental attitude. Now, Mr. Carnegie, what is coming up as number 10? Carnegie, 10th place goes to tolerance. Let us define tolerance simply as open-mindedness. The tolerant person is one who holds his mind open for new facts and new knowledge and new viewpoints on all subjects. I hazard the guess that this definition classifies most of us as being intolerant. Observe too, before we get too far into the analysis of this subject, how closely related are tolerance and tactfulness, and also how definitely both are related to mental attitude. Try as you may, there is no escape from consideration of the subject of mental attitude. It crops up everywhere, in every human relationship. Before leaving this subject, I wish to enumerate a few of the specific handicaps which men set up for themselves through their intolerance. 1. It makes enemies of those who would like to be friends. Number 2. It stops the growth of the mind by limiting the search for knowledge. Number 3. It discourages imagination. Number 4. It prohibits self-discipline. Number 5. It prevents accuracy in thinking and reasoning. Added to all these, it also damages the character through unseen and unknown ways that limits one's use of the spiritual forces which are available to open minds. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, you surely gave intolerance the stinging indictment it deserves. This rounds out the first 10 essential elements of a desirable personality. I suppose we might call them the Big 10 of a positive personality. And now for the next round, Mr. Carnegie. What is number 11? Carnegie. The 11th trait of attractive personality is frankness of manner and speech. Everyone mistrusts the man who resorts to subterfuge instead of dealing frankly with his daily associates. I have known men who were so slippery that you could not pin them down to a direct, clear-cut statement on any subjects, and I have never yet seen a man of this type who could be depended upon. This sort of man doesn't come right out and lie, but he does what amounts to exactly the same thing by deliberately withholding important facts from those who have a right to know the facts. This habit is a form of dishonesty which, if indulged in very long, will undermine the soundest character. Men of sound character always have the courage to speak and deal directly with people, and they follow this habit, even though it may at times be to their personal disadvantage. Men who resort to subterfuge to deceive others seldom have very much confidence in themselves. Hill. I'm sure, Mr. Carnegie, that everyone prefers dealing with a man who is frank and honest. In the long run, people who think they are deceiving others are only deceiving themselves. But, Mr. Carnegie, what is number 12 in this series of desirable personality traits? Carnegie. Number 12 is a keen sense of humour. A well-developed sense of humour aids a man in becoming flexible and adjustable to the varying circumstances of life. It also enables him to relax and become human instead of remaining cool and distant. Moreover, a keen sense of humour keeps a man from taking himself and life too seriously, a tendency towards which altogether too many people are inclined. I always feel sorry for the man who cannot or will not relax and laugh when it is proper for him to do so, for laughter is the finest of mental tonics. I am not so sure, but what is it? I am not so sure, but what it is also a good physical tonic. Okay, but what it is also a good physical tonic. A keen sense of humour, no matter how it is indulged, provides relaxation. The people of America spend millions of dollars annually for the circus and the stage and screenplays to provide such an escape. A sense of humour even serves to give one a better physical appearance too, as it helps to keep the lines of the face softened. It also leads to the habit of smiling, which is one of the important traits of attractive personality. And there is a definite relationship between a sense of humour and a mental attitude. A keen sense of humour encourages a positive mental attitude. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, you make it very clear that an attractive personality is an asset of the greatest worth to anyone. The factors you are presenting will make it possible for people to take inventory of their personality assets, as well as any possible limitations. Your suggestions and instructions will enable them to strengthen any weak spots and thus increase their ability to negotiate with life on more favourable terms. What is the next trait necessary to the development of an attractive personality? Carnegie. Now we come to the most profound and far-reaching of all the elements comprising an attractive personality: faith in infinite intelligence. Faith is woven into every principle of the philosophy of achievement, since the intangible power of faith is the essence of every great achievement, no matter what may be its nature or purpose. My analysis of this subject, therefore, is a responsibility I dare not neglect. To do so would be something like trying to teach astronomy without reference to the stars. Understand, however, that any reference I make to the subject of faith has nothing whatsoever to do with the supernatural, nor has it any theological connotations. I shall speak of the power of faith only as it is an inescapable necessity to the man who wishes to make the fullest use of his mind for the attainment of material ends. No philosophy dealing with the subject of personal achievement would be complete without a definite and direct recognition of the power of faith. The reason for this is that the state of mind known as faith provides the greatest outlet for the expression of initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, self-reliance, and definiteness of purpose. Without it, no one could rise above mediocrity. To neglect the subject of faith would therefore be something like providing a man with an intricate piece of machinery without giving him any power with which to operate it. Hill, are you saying, Mr. Carnegie, that a man's brain is actually a piece of very fine machinery, intricately and accurately constructed to perform a definite function in the business of living? Carnegie, that I am, and the power that operates this machine is a form of energy which comes from the outside, and faith is the master gate through which an individual may give his brain full and free access to the great universal power which operates it. The hand that opens the gate and permits the free entry of the power which operates the brain is desire, or motive. No one has ever yet discovered any other method of opening the gate. There are various degrees to which it can be opened, all depending upon motive and desire. Only those desires which take on the proportion of an obsession, burning desires, serve to open wide the valve. A burning desire, in the sense that I am using this term, is one that is accompanied by a deep emotional feeling. Mere head desires, growing out of pure reason, do not open the gate to the brain as widely as heart desires that are mixed with emotion. I wish to make this point very clear and to emphasize it in every way possible, for it is the very warp and woof of the subject of faith. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, can you give us a few illustrations of the practical benefits to be derived by those who learn to use the power of faith? Carnegie, I would start out by saying that the state of mind known as faith automatically wipes out intolerance by freeing the mind of the man-made limitations. After all, what is intolerance but a partially closed mind? Just as darkness is dispelled by the simple process of turning on the light, so is intolerance eliminated by opening the mind for the influx of the power that gives the brain the vision to encompass all of life's realities instead of only a few of them. Next, I'll say that opening the mind through faith provides one with a greater perspective of the world about him and the people that live in it. This same receptiveness paves the way for a better understanding in all human relationships. Therefore, it serves to support all the traits of attractive personality. The third benefit to those who use the power of faith is that an open mind allows the influx of power that removes all the imaginary obstacles in the way of individual achievement and aids in surmounting the real obstacle. As one man so aptly stated this truth, where faith is the guide, the individual cannot lose his way. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, will you name in order the facts you consider to be most significant in connection with this subject of faith? Carnegie, one fact of deep significance is that the power available through faith is inexhaustible, and there are no penalties of any nature whatsoever for the free use of this power. This fact connotes the intention of the Creator for full and complete use of this universal power by all who desire to use it, and for every purpose essential for man's welfare. It is also significant that the method of contacting and using this power is simple and within the reach of every person. It consists of voluntary appropriation of the power through the medium of desire or motive. Still, another profound fact is that the power of thought is the only thing over which any human being has complete control, and the individual's prerogative in this respect has been cleverly protected by a system which makes it impossible for one individual to know what use another makes of the power of thought. Hill, it would appear then, Mr. Carnegie, that the only real privacy a man has is that he enjoys within himself and his own thoughts in the chambers of his own mind. This in itself is a profound and awe-inspiring truth. Carnegie, aye, and the man who fails to grasp the significance of the facts we have mentioned can never have an attractive personality in the fullest meaning of that term. The man who does not understand and apply them therefore removes all limitations from his own mind. The promise of reward is worthy of all the effort one may put into understanding. Now, Mr. Carnegie, what is the next trait? We've got a lot left of this. Okay. I'm going to leave it on this one then, guys. Okay. Now, Mr. Carnegie, what is the next trait of attractive personality? Carnegie is a keen sense of justice. But that is enough for today. Okay, guys, I will catch up with you soon to carry on reading our book. And until then, take care. Much love. Bye for now.